And so he said, whoops, going out for Dad of the Year.
Well, you can. You say this is what you're adding. Yes. And then this shows what those are, grade, what's being now requested.
I feel like we've had a lot fewer small pieces of sound systems now than what we did the first couple of months.
I'm going to call the Finance and Budget Committee meeting for February of the Washington County Quorum Court to order. I have asked Circuit Clerk Sylvester to do the prayer and pledge for us this evening. Mr. Sylvester, if you'll do the honor. Thank you, sir. Item number 3, we need to adopt our agenda. I have one addition to the agenda. You should have a hard copy passed out in front of you. It's item 22-0-02027. This was the ordinance that was added at the meeting last night in personnel. It is the ordinance to create the position for the American Rescue Plan Coordinator. Do I have a motion to add this to the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion to add by J.P. Ussery, a second. Second by J.P. Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
That will be added. That will be item number, what was it? 18. New item number 18. Are there any additional changes to the agenda? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda by J.P. Wilson.
Second.
Second by J.P. Ussery. All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda has been adopted. Monthly reports. Treasurer Hill.
Good evening, everybody. All right, 4.1, Treasurer Summary. First line, the general fund. Revenues came in quite a bit over expenditures. A lot of that was collector and treasurer reimbursements for expenses last year. We repaid that, and also excess treasurer's commission came in. In 2021, I had $2.3 million in treasurer's commission, and I gave 85% of that back to the taxing entities. General got $475,000 of that. If you look down 3046, the rescue plan, the money coming in there, that was the unused money from 2021 on the premium pay. And the money going out was, the biggest part of that was a check we wrote to Returning Home Incorporated. Down at the rental assistance, 3525, 3526. Got in $3 million for the rental assistance number 1. And the number 2 rental assistance, we're expecting $3.4 million, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. If you look at the last page of this report, we ended the month with a little over $87 million in the bank. 4.2, the 1 cent sales tax. Did very well this month. These are the November numbers. almost 8% up, $58,000 over last year at this time. 4.3, the county jail tax. This is not affected by last year's census. You can tell by that by the percentage. It's 20.49% up over last year. We're already 200,000 above where we were last January. 4.4, just a few of the distribution items. The only negative we had was the grocery stores, just a little bit. But I bet it picks up after the latest winter storm. We should do pretty well, I figure. 4.5, half cent. This is the road tax. Almost 27% over the same period last year. 191,000 came in. Sales tax is just incredible right now. That's all I have.
Any questions for Treasurer Hill? Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Employees insurance report. Is Mr. Angel here tonight? You, sir. Welcome back. You came back.
Yes, sir. Y'all were pretty easy on me last time.
Right.
I have better news to deliver this month, so hopefully you'll be easy on me today, too. Apparently there's something big going on in town today. Traffic was bad. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah. Sense of urgency in everyone tonight.
Yes, sir. Hopefully we can pull a tiger's tail or something, right? Okay, so a couple of items we have. We don't have the claims breakdown on what was paid in medical versus what was paid in prescription yet. Blue Cross just hasn't gotten that to us. But you will see in the overall insurance document that you have first, we do have total claims paid. So what's the most important is how much money came in and how much went out the door. I like to have the detail, but next month I'll make sure that I do have that breakdown on what was RX spend and what was classic medical spend. So we had a very good January. I told you last month that was to be expected. November and December are usually expensive months because folks have hit their deductibles and tend to have more procedures when there's maybe a little less skin in the game. January is the opposite. Everyone's back to zero on the deductible. They haven't spent anything, so traditionally we see that being one of our lower spends. So you'll see we had total claims of $284,000 last month, which is a very good number considering we funded it at $629,000. So we were able to gain quite a bit back on the reserve. If you recall, last month we had a $3 million reserve account, rounding just slightly. Our goal, as mentioned last month, is to have that at a minimum of $3.4 million, and I'm happy to say that our ending balance in January was $3.478 million. So we've gotten that number back up to where I think we're all fairly comfortable with it, back up to goal. That's 3.4 to 3.6. Obviously, I'd love to tell you it's 3.6, but we'll take the 3.4. The next thing I wanted to point out was year over year, how we looked in January. You'll see total claims paid in January of 21 was $322,000, and again, this year we were at $284, so about $38,000 difference there to the good for January of 22 versus January of 21. So I would say we're continuing to trend in the right direction. As mentioned last month, we are not max funded. The difference in total funding from both the employer and employees and maximum liability on our fund is still about $1 million. But that is not uncommon in groups of this size to not be max funded, especially when we have a sizable reserve that's continuing to hold at the level we feel like we need it, which is that 3.4 to 3.6 million.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for Mr. Angel? We appreciate you.
Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. Comptroller's report. Comptroller Worthen. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Uh, 6.1 is the summary statement of operations. All the detail is there in your packet. For 1 month in, if expenses were linear, we should be at around 8.3%. And for, the only account that looked a little large was, General Services, Department 118, they're showing 34%, but they just paid the yearly AAC insurance, so it's top front-loaded expense that caused that to look a little out of whack. And then overall for general fund, we're at 7.4% actual expenditures. And then over to the last page, overall for all the funds was 7.9%. Then 6.2 is the unappropriated reserve balance report. The effect of the January ordinances on all the funds is shown there. And general fund was 2.6 million. The general reserve at 11.9 million. And then the jail fund deficit 807,000. So net general is looking pretty healthy at 13.8 million. And that's all I had.
Questions for the Comptroller? Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Before we get into the business end of our agenda, I've invited Chief of Staff Lester to give an update on the salary administration reform we're working on. Chief of Staff?
Thank you, sir. So I know we talked, for all the JPs here, there was some discussion during budget about road department and the salary program for them. I gave us a very aggressive timeline of February meeting here to have that to you. We are very close. The ice didn't help last week because we kind of stopped and pivoted to everything, but I won't blame it all on that. I will tell you what we have so far, and our plan is to have this to the entire quorum court to review before any committee meetings for next month. Our road superintendent and the assistant road superintendent and their leadership team have put together a very robust program whereby when someone comes into the county road program without any background, green behind the ears, there is a path for them that they can see, that they know what it is they have to learn, train on, be proficient in before moving up to the next level. And so they've covered all their bases, or we think we've covered all of our bases. So what we're looking at for our hourly employees is going to be a program that's very similar to the sheriff's flex slots. Those are and this is the sheriff, and I talked about this, how I know this. Those are positions where people can be bumped up based on their qualifications or their certifications and that thing. And so we're going to be looking at kind of doing the same thing. As far as the salaried people, the supervisors, those are going to be more of a step program where there's a range based on their performance, their years of service, where their pay can be moved up by the judge based on that. And so they've done a very, very good job, very thorough job of getting something that's on paper, a metric system, a data sheet that shows, 1 year and this level, 2 years at this level, 3, 4, 5, it goes all the way out to kind of show where someone would be placed and what they would make. So it's something tangible for our guys, for our employees. They can see it. It gives them the opportunity to be as aggressive in achieving those goals and moving up as they want. And if someone doesn't want to, then there's certainly no penalty for not. They know where they're going to be. And so I will have that out to everybody, to the entire quorum court before any committee meetings, like I said, to kind of show you what this is going to look like, kind of what these gradings and these classifications of these jobs will look like, and give you time to really review it before it comes to a committee to then discuss, to give you time to contact my office, contact the judge, contact the road department, talk to whomever you'd like to make sure we get all the questions answered. No doubt there's probably going to be some things that we don't see that we're going to need to adjust, but we will have something at least to start the process on. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got any.
Any questions for the Chief of Staff? Thank you, sir. Look forward to it. We'll move on to the business section of our agenda. First is an unfinished item of business. It's item number 7, an ordinance appropriating $9,600 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund, $1,000 to the special legal line item in the county attorney budget for 2022. This was a tabled ordinance from last month. Discussion or questions or motions? Would you like to give a little bit of background on that? I think it might help us out, Chief of Staff. Thank you.
This is a request from one of our FINS attorney who spends a considerable amount of resources providing translation services to families, to parents in FINS cases. This is, in order for a FINS attorney to do a thorough job, they've got to be able to communicate with the parents as well as their client, who is the child, the juvenile that's involved, because the parents got information. And so you can't always rely, believe it or not, on juveniles, two, that are, having some problems anyways. You can't always rely on them translating for their parents. Because if that were me, probably when I was a kid, I might have said some more things that were a little bit better for me and may not have been so truthful. So we utilize these interpreters so that to allow the FINS attorney to translate. And so the attorneys come and ask that because their firm does this and they're expending a lot of resources, that they be reimbursed because it does get costly. And so I am asking that you appropriate money for these services so that they can continue to provide the quality of service that they're providing. I think this is a very reasonable ask, if you want my opinion. I don't think that, I've looked at the numbers, I don't think it's an outlandish amount. It looks very reasonable, maybe even a little less than what they may actually spend. So I don't think that they're just asking for something. It's certainly not just going into the attorney's pocket to pay them more money. It's going to people that get paid to do this.
J.P. Duncan.
I move passage of item 7.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Ussery. J.P. Simons.
This is something that we'll build in. The question was, is this a one-time or is this going to be an annual thing? What would happen is we would build this into the budget for next year. So when we submit the budget, it will include these translation services already in them, so it's not a continual ask.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's a continual ask. It just
Well,
won't be
but we don't have
asked.
to come back separately and ask
Okay.
for it. Yeah,
I just
we'll
want to
put it in the
clarify.
budget. Right.
I got you. Any other discussion or questions? Any public comments? We have a motion to pass item 7.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Ussery. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That will pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 8, an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $13,321.56 in the jail fund and appropriating $13,321.56 from the unappropriated reserves of the jail fund to the utilities line item of the jail operations and maintenance budget for 2022. As you can see in the ordinance, the Washington County Sheriff's Office participates in SWEPCO's energy efficiency program, and they've gotten this rebate. This accepts that money and allocates it to the utilities line item. Any questions? J.P. Duncan.
Move we pass item number 8.1.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Wilson. Any further discussion? Any public comments? Oh, I'm sorry. J.P. Ussery.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm just curious as to how much savings we actually received is there any record of that? Who would track that? The maintenance department, maybe?
Yes, sir. I don't believe there's a record that actually tracks the savings. A couple of things contribute to this. One is our energy efficient lighting and different things we do to promote our efficiency of our building. The other is in times of great need in the summer, particularly being at the stage we are on their line, they ask us to run our standby generator to generate our own power so that the rest of the south part of the Fayetteville and the Tyson plant can operate at maximum capacity. So we run our standby generator on certain days when the humidity is really high and it's really hot, and part of that money comes back to us. So they reimburse us more than what the cost of the electricity that we would have used. So it helps them, and it helps us and gets us a little bit money back. But we don't have a mechanism to track the actual savings, how many fewer kilowatts that we may have used.
Well, we're appreciative for whatever we can get, that's absolutely for sure. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion or questions? Public comments? All right, I have a motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Wilson. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That will pass to the full quorum court. Item number 9, an ordinance appropriating $61,784.63 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to the various line items in the Circuit Court 4 budget. This was passed to us last night from the Personnel Committee. From what I understand, we have received a grant that will half fund 2 case managers, and the county needs to fund the other half of both those case managers, and this is what this is for. Discussion or motions? J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. I move passage.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Simons,
Second.
second by J.P. Usry. Any further discussion? J.P. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. Are we permanently adding 2 staff members with this? Is question number 1. Question number 2 is if we have 2 half-time salaries, can we hire 1 person?
I'm not familiar with that. Chairman Ecke, would you care to comment?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. To answer the questions, no, it is only as long as the grant money is available, and I do believe that's a 5-year program, and that will go there. The hiring of the 2 people, I'm sure the grant is specific in what they can and cannot hire, and this is Judge Christy Beaumont's court, and it has to do with drug court. So it is at the judge's discretion and with the guidelines from the grant. I hope that answers his questions.
So this ordinance is just for this year. So this is basically $300,000 investment by the county. Am I thinking about that right? Because we'll have to fund this every year.
I think this is the amount for the 5 years, is it not? No, it's just for 1 year? Okay, but the positions only go for 5 years, as long as the grant is available to them.
Any further questions? J.P. Duncan.
Chairman Nagy, was there a need brought by Judge Beaumont for these positions?
Well, they're growing.
And then,
Yeah. I'm trying to find her letter of justification on here as to why she was requesting it. ARPS, GSI. I know that they were trying to grow the court in handling, it's a successful program, drug court is a very successful program. I can't answer any more as to the specifics to Judge Beaumont's office, but I know that they're growing, and this will help facilitate more cases.
So maybe if this passes this evening, we can invite Judge Beaumont to quorum court.
Certainly.
speak
But I
to
know
that.
as frugal as Judge Beaumont is, I don't want to say she's tight, but she's very frugal and cognizant of taxpayer money, always is, and actually reduces her budget whenever she can and returns the money right up front. So this is an opportunity that they have to help more people with their drug addictions and getting them through drug court. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussions or comments? Any public comment?
I'm Butch Pond. I live out on Round Mountain, out here east of Fayetteville. And I wanted to point out that this drug court, along with the Veterans Court, it's a very good alternative to some of these folks helping to overcrowd our jails and prisons. And with the struggles we have had to make room for detainees at the jail, I just see this as a really big plus, and I recommend that any of you that have not attend some of their drug court proceedings and see how that works. And with all the different things that we've done to make up for the overcrowding of the jail, and anything that we can do to grow this program and help keep the detainee population from growing, I'm going to be for completely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public comments?
Excuse me, one more thing. I found this. It's a University of Arkansas for Medical Science. It's a PAC grant, SAMHSA subcontract budget justification. Personnel, case manager, $22,766. A case manager will provide trauma information or trauma-informed, family-focused case management services to participants of drug court and link participants' children to trauma services when appropriate. The second case manager they're asking for is that case manager will provide trauma-informed, family-focused case management services to participants of drug court and link participants' children to trauma services as well. The total salaries would be $45,531. And of course, the FICA is followed. And I guess that's their. And then also there is a case manager will make incidental trips within Washington and Madison counties to meet with UAMS staff and clients when off-site assistance is needed. And they estimate 57 miles weekly at 50 weeks per calendar year, and it's so much. So the total contract that they contracted, it was $62,781. So I hope that just sheds some light on the two positions that they're asking for and why they're asking for it. It's to help family and their children's in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments?
Hi, Eva Madison. I'm having trouble following it, and this may be along the lines of what J.P. Johnson was asking, but it says that UAMS got a grant for 2 positions, but they only want to create 1, and then the funding is $45,000. Is that for half a position? Because I'll take that position if $45,000 is half of it. So I guess I just don't understand it. If UAMS is going to get half the funding for 2 positions, you'd think we would create 2 positions, but we're creating 1. And so I I would take the grant money, and I think we should use it for drug court, but I think we need more clarification on what exactly is happening, so, because that doesn't quite make sense. Thanks.
Yeah, I can agree with that. My understanding was it was for two positions. We fund half and UAMS funds half, but I understand them. J.P. Wilson?
Mr. Chairman, are we aware of there being a problem with deferring on this for a month? It seems like there are enough questions. I'd really like to hear more from the judge about the details of this and the need for it and so forth, rather than passing it tonight myself. So I'm going to move that we table this till the next meeting of Finance and Budget.
I have a motion to table item 9.1 until the March Finance and Budget Committee by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That will be item 9.1 will be tabled until the Finance and Budget Committee. Item number 10, an ordinance appropriating $11,874.72 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to various line items in the tax collector budget for 2022. Collector Wood was in personnel last night and said she's had somebody leave her department, and this is her shuffling the personnel around to meet her needs, and she's trying to get her team recoordinated in the best possible positions. Collector Wood, if I've misrepresented you, come up, and if we have questions, we'll get you. Any questions or discussion on this or motions? Sorry. J.P. Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, it perhaps should be clear to me, but I'm not sure if I understand if there's a raise involved in this for anybody, or if it's just adjusting the positions.
I'm going to let Collector Wood speak to that.
The money that I'm asking for it does not include a raise. It's just adjusting so those positions have enough money to pay what they're making. So they keep their amounts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? You don't have to keep us, dumb it down for us. What you're essentially doing, keep me straight, you're moving people who are higher paid into positions that are currently graded lower. Is that right? You're wanting them to keep the same amount of pay, but you're wanting to switch their job roles. Is that correct?
Some of them are being moved to a lower grade, but I want them to keep their pay because they do a good job and they deserve that pay. And then one lady is being moved to, it's a lateral move. She's in that same grade, but she's been in that grade for a while. So the person that is in that position now doesn't make as much as she does, so I have to move some money over for that.
J.P. Wilson?
I move approval of this, passing it on Finance and Budget.
Motion to approve, motion to pass to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Duncan. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? All right. Item 10.1, we have a motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This will move on to the full quorum court. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 11, an ordinance appropriating $77,039.10 from the Recorder's Cost Fund to various line items in the Circuit Clerk's Recorder Costs budget for 2022. Circuit Clerk Sylvester, you might go ahead and come up here. I didn't take very good notes about this last night, and you might want to speak to it. Oh, well, good. We're going to hear it for the first time.
Good evening. So over the last 10 years, we've been doing very well on handling all of the volume and increases here in Washington County with the current staff of about 20 people in my office. And we've actually kind of pride ourselves on doing better than a lot of the surrounding counties who have sometimes twice as many staff members and less volume than we do. So this year, we have kind of peaked out, and we're gonna have to increase our staff numbers just due to the fact that there is so much more real estate volume and court volume coming in. So what I'm asking for, this is a brand new position. It is a supervisory position, and what I'm looking at is 5-10 years down the road. I'm wanting to go ahead and lay the foundation of supervision, and then once we get those in place, start adding individual slots, people that come in on the ground level, and assess where we're at as far as being able to handle volume each time we bring somebody on. But I think, in my personal opinion, again, looking at 5-10 years down the road, not only while I'm currently in office to help the staff alleviate some of the pressure and workload off of them, but for on down the road after I'm gone, for whoever succeeds me to have those things in place for them. So that's just one less thing they have to worry about. They'll have good supervisors in place, and that way as the staff grows, we can be better suited for supervision and training and things like that.
Questions for Circuit Clerk Solicitor? Any motions? Got a motion to approve, or I got a motion to pass the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Simons, a second by J.P. Usry. Any further discussion? Any public comments? All right, item number 11, we have a motion to pass the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation, a second by J.P. Usry, or primary motion of J.P. Simons, second by J.P. Usry. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item number 11 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 12, an ordinance appropriating $48,617.83 from the county library fund to various line items in the county library budget for 2022. Unfortunately, our head librarian has decided to retire. Okay, you want to come speak to this?
Sure. I apologize for not being here last night.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, I'm working towards retirement.
Okay.
It may not be this year, it may not, well, it won't be this year, probably won't be next year, but I need to get an assistant director back in the building to be able to do the work that I do when I leave. That way, if the board wants to continue that person and move them up to the director, they can, or they can open a search for a new library director. But there'll be someone there that can do the work in the meantime. And but this is just the first step of getting back to that.
Any questions? Any motions? Got a motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Usry. Do I have a second? Second by J.P. Simons. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? All right, we have a motion to pass item number 12 to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Usry, a second by J.P. Simons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item number 12 will move to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation. Item number 13, an ordinance appropriating $19,503.29 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to the various line items in the buildings and grounds maintenance budget for 2022. Chief of Staff, you want to speak to this?
So this is a request. We have 3 individuals, well 4 if you include Director Gonzalez, but this doesn't apply to him, who have received some specialized training. Director Gonzalez, along with his nighttime supervisor, assistant director, and his janitorial supervisor, have received. They are certified facilities management, basically, is what it is, and they're the first governmental employees to have this certification in Arkansas, and so they've gone to. It's taken a lot of time. I think it's been a course of about a year and a half or 2 years for them to get this. And so what he's asking for his two positions underneath him that have received that is what is the standard increase in pay once someone receives that certification. And I think they had to take like 3 or 4 tests over the last 2 years, and these are 3 or 4 day long tests to get their certification. We also have Justin, who's the electrician, who has gotten a certification, the first part of a 2-part certification, and so he's asking for an increase for that certification as kind of a way to, incentivize these guys to continue to grow in their employment and their education with the county. The other bumps are, he's got some people that he typically uses temp work before he then hires somebody on to make sure that they're going to stay with it. As you can imagine, it's not a high-paying job. There's a lot of turnover. And so will have some people that will work for the county for a couple of years as a temp, and then he'll hire them on to work as an employee. And so what he's doing is he's asking for an increase for those to kind of separate them from people that have not worked and have no experience. He's not asking anywhere up to the top of the first quartile for these guys. He's literally asking for just and I don't know what the exact amount is, but a few cents an hour bump to kind of separate them and to thank them for their service and for being good employees and working hard. So that's kind of what this request is.
J.P. Duncan.
I move we pass item number 13.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Motion to pass by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Simons. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? We got a motion to pass item 13.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Simons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That'll move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 14, an ordinance changing the grades in various positions in the Circuit Court 8 budget and appropriating $119,445.43 to the various line items of the Circuit Court 8 budget for 2022. J.P. Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment that I'm circulating across the horseshoe here. I talked to the judge after last night's meeting, and it's my understanding that what was requested in last night's ordinance wasn't what she really asked for. If you look at what our consultant had laid out for that area, actually there are some positions versus the budget that were actually reductions of grade instead of increases of grade. So this amendment that I'm going to make here in a minute actually calls for deappropriating $15,195.40, and I'm sure Chief Lester will be glad to discuss the details of this if anybody needs that, and returning said money to the unappropriated reserves in the general fund. And so I think that we wrapped two things together in trying to set up her staff. Then there was a conceptual thing that was being done to try to go to budgeting at the maximum instead of budgeting at the minimum. I don't think that we've approved that yet, and so that's why I'm making this amendment or asking for this amendment to be adopted so that we'll later take up whether we want to go to budgeting at maximum instead of budgeting at minimum or some other hybrid. So on this, it is my understanding this will fulfill what our consultant said we should be doing on her staff without doing the other thing of going to a budget at the maximum. So I think J.P. Johnson may have some questions for me on this. If you look down in Article 7, there's also some language. It's you'll see that the red is the adds and the strike is the change. There is hereby deappropriated $15,195.40 from the following line items in the Circuit Court 8 budget and returned to the unappropriated reserves of the general fund for 2022. And then the individual line items, salaries, instead of, they're striking $97,133.80 and putting in decrease of $12,357. Social Security striking $7,430.74, putting in a reduction of $945.31, and non-contributory retirement striking an increase of $14,880.90 and going to a decrease of $1,893.09. So I'll entertain, I move that we amend the ordinance in those fashions. I've given a copy to Myra, and I hope the judge has got her copy of it. And we may want to hear from Chief Lester if there are any questions on the specifics.
All right, first let's take up, I have a motion to amend as presented by J.P. Wilson. Do I have a second? I have a motion to amend by J.P. Wilson, a second for the amendment by J.P. Johnson. All right, let's start discussion on the amendment. J.P. Usry.
Thank you very much. I'd like to hear from the judge and just see what she has to say about this. Will that meet the requirements that you require?
Thank you very much. So J.P. Wilson did talk to me after the meeting, and so what I had explained to him was, and what I explained to the committee last night, is that there are really sort of three parts to this ask. So when the budget was presented, the grades for my job descriptions did not go through the rating procedure from Johansson Group and JSAP for a variety of reasons. Anyway, it didn't. And so after the budget was approved, we got word, Division 8 got word from county administration staff that we needed to go back and do that. And so we sent the job descriptions back to Johansson Group, and they were regraded. And so in one case, the grade went up, but in the other cases, the grade went down. So the primary purpose of coming back to the body was to ask for just to approve and adopt the gradings that had been given by Johansson Group. Going along with that, there are some, when we made our budget proposal, we did the proposal for the very minimum of all of the grade positions. And what we were hoping to do is get funding at more of the mid-level, which would enable us to attract and hire people who had some experience. So we have we have 4 people that we've put forward a justification letter trying to give them more than the minimum because they have relevant experience from somewhere else. And so if our budget is only at the minimum for each of the grades, then we're not able to offer them a competitive salary necessarily. And so those were our 2 big parts of the ask. And then there was some input from the new HR director, which I think Mr. Lester probably can explain better than I can, that ended up in this ordinance that would fund the positions at the highest level of the grade levels rather than at a different level. So I do not know whether or not these numbers make sense because I didn't crunch the numbers. What I can say is that for my purposes, it would be super helpful if I could be funded at least the mid-level for each of the grades. And that way, if I had a candidate who had some experience, then I would just have to go through JSAP and personnel to get them up to that mid-level, as opposed to coming back to quorum court and asking for more appropriated money, if that made sense.
Positions that you asked for, and the 99 cents per hour to change to the grade. So that's all you're doing because of the exceptional job pay grade right here.
So if I may follow up,
So you might want
when you
to
finish.
this needs to get approved.
Okay. If I may follow up on that, and will this tie your hands hiring the people that you need to hire?
I haven't crunched the numbers, so I don't know if this reduction that has been proposed as an amendment takes me down to the base level of my, because I have, if the number that was used to put in the amendment takes me down below the mid-grade of all of the grade positions and takes me down to the bottom, then that will be challenging. If it funds my positions at the mid-level, then I think I'm able to work with that.
So where did this number come from?
Chief Lester worked these up after our discussion, so he'll probably have to answer the specifics of your question.
So after my discussion with J.P. Wilson today, I asked the HR director. His request was that the budget and fund, that we not budget more than what is needed or what is funded. And so these numbers reflect the increase for the 4 positions that Judge Warren has requested. And then on the ones that she has not requested any increase, the funding, the budgeting and funding went back down to the minimum. So it does reflect the 4 that you've requested from personnel at the correct amount, and the rest of them are at the minimum.
Okay, so if I could just interject then, I'm hiring 9 people. Thank you very much for funding those positions. And so I've hired 5 at this point, so I have some more hiring to do. And so if you allocate funds so that I can hire up to the mid-grade level, then of course a brand new person who doesn't have any experience would come in at the base level. But if they come in like some of these with 13 years at the jail or 12 years at OCSC or whatever that have significant experience, then I would be able to hire them at a more competitive rate without coming back and asking for more allocation of money to my budget. It still wouldn't be a slam dunk. I mean, I would still have to get permission of JSAP and personnel, but at least the money would be allocated to do that. If I didn't spend it, if I didn't find people who are going to be that level of experience, you'd get it back in a rollback at the end of the year. From my end, if I don't have that money available to hire them, then I have to offer them a job on contingency. And so if they don't know for certain what money they're going to get, I've already lost one candidate because I had to write a contingency letter, and so that person went away, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, and I will say that, I think we all share frustrations with the Sally administration. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but that's the process that everybody has to go through. So, I mean, it's not.
And I think that would be my point. If
Right.
we've taken care of the 4 that she's asked for, we're just asking to go to the process everybody else goes through. So.
I think that's noted. J.P. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My head is spinning. The judge made a request at budget time that was only 90 days ago. This court funded everything she asked for. Last night, we get a request that would have increased the budget that we passed 90 days ago. It would have increased the total budget 16% and the personnel portion 27%. And now in the last 24 hours, we've come up with a totally different plan. It sounds to me like this needs to go on the back burner and simmer. And let's let everybody figure out whether it really works, or we're going to be having this discussion again next month. Because I don't have any confidence in the world, and I'm like the judge. I haven't had a chance. I got these numbers 5 minutes ago. I have no idea what we're voting on or whether it's going to work or whether it's not going to work.
Chief of Staff Lester, do you have more comments on that?
So just to kind of let all of you know, Judge Warren submitted her budget, and submitted her the numbers, and they didn't go through the salary administration grading program. So what you ended up funding when you came in at the end of the budget process and voted just to give her what she asked for were positions that had not gone through the program that the positions are required to go. All positions go through in order to get a grading, so that we have people that are in the same area. Now, her positions that she wanted were not identical to the positions in Division 3. She had done some hybrid positions and kind of merged some people together, and so it wasn't apples to apples with Division 3. So what we did in talking to Judge Warren is she agreed. We submitted those back to the Johansson Group, DB Squared, to do the grading, and they came back. Judge Warren has 4 individuals that she has a contingent offer out to try to hire that have a little bit more experience than just the minimum. Our pay grade system has a minimum and a maximum, and that is the range. A grade 16, this is your range that you can pay. What the new HR director did, which I don't know that I completely disagree with, is she budgeted for the amount requested for what Judge Warren has asked, to include that in the ask, but for the positions that were open, she budgeted for the range. Because we say that if you're a grade 16, you're going to make between, $18.50 an hour and $22.50 an hour. So we budget it because until she hires someone and a determination is made on whether they have more experience and fit under the guidelines of the salary administration program, we don't really know what they're going to make, because they may be like someone like this that comes in. That's the confusion. So that's why it was budgeted and the budget went up, was to say, hey, we don't really know what the funding is going to be, so we're going to budget at the top, because who knows, she may get somebody with 200 years experience in juvenile court that knows everything about juvenile court, and will be at the top of the scale. And she'll have to ask, that be given those circumstances, and follow the process. J.P. Wilson called me today and said, hey, can you prepare something with the numbers if we were not to fund at the top, but were to fund at the minimum, and those are the numbers that you have in front of you. They are we said, okay, we'll move the funding back down to the minimum, so there's no range. We're saying that if you're a 16, this is it. You don't get the range, you get this, which is what we've typically done in the past, and except for the 4 positions that she has that remained at the request that she's made that's already passed JSAP and personnel. So that's the numbers that you have, was bringing those extra positions that are not filled, budgeting back down to the minimum.
J.P. Johnson.
So if we were to pass this, are we not going to hear about this budget again until budget time?
Not necessarily, because if Judge Warren then is filling these positions and she gets somebody with a lot of experience, she's going to come in and she's going to be asking personnel, JSAP, personnel, finance and budget, and then the quorum court to let her hire them at a rate above the minimum. It's still within the pay range, because you can't hire somebody outside. We have rules that say if you're a grade 16, this is your min, this is your max, that's it. We can't offer you any more money, because that's the top of the grade. So if she hires somebody, or wants to hire somebody with experience that is not just somebody new coming in, then yes, she'll be back, and that's the thing, she'll be back asking for permission from personnel, and then permission from the finance and budget, and then permission from the full quorum court. The idea behind the budgeting the full amounts was to keep that from having to come back to finance and budget and quorum court, and let the salary administration program work the way that it has been designed, which is currently not how we're utilizing the salary administration program. And I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of frustration JP-wise. I've talked to you about, our salary administration program. What do we do? Well, one thing we do is we budget to allow the elected officials to hire based on experience, and then they can't just come in and automatically give somebody a raise or hire somebody at the top of the pay range. There's a process they have to go to. It does touch on the quorum court, and they have to get all of that approval in order to increase that. But the one thing that doesn't happen is you don't have to come back in and ask for an ordinance to appropriate more money every time you do it.
J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've got my head wrapped around this. Personnel last night passed an ordinance based off of the maximum of the salary ranges. JP Wilson is asking to amend that to the minimum range. Judge Warren has 4 potential candidates. She's asking more realistically for a mid-range. Do we have numbers for the mid-range?
I do not.
I don't want you to lose these 4 well-qualified people because your hands are tied. Wait for...
I don't want us to jump down a rabbit hole. The amendment accommodates the 4 positions that you have already offered at the higher levels.
At that mid-range?
What they're saying is the other positions, everybody jump in, the other positions that she has not hired will be at the minimum, and if she gets a recruit that she wants to bring in higher than the minimum, she will have to come back and get that adjusted, which I will add is our process in the county right now.
So the 4 contingencies that you have on the table is reflected in this?
In the amendment, yes.
Amendment by, okay, thank you.
JP Duncan.
So is there a motion on the floor for the amended ordinance?
I made a motion to amend with this data that we handed out.
We have a motion to amend by JP Wilson and a second by JP Johnson.
Okay, call the question.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Okay. Voting on the amendment. Motion to amend by JP Wilson, second by JP Johnson. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The amendment passes. Now back to the original ordinance as amended. Any motions? I have a motion to approve as amended to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by JP Wilson.
Second.
Second by JP Duncan. Any further discussion on the amended ordinance? Any public comments?
So it's my understanding, and thank you for letting me speak, Judge Zimmerman with Division 3, that the amendment that you just passed would be to fund the budget in Division 8 to the mid-level. You may not hire each position at mid-level. You still have to go through the... Takes that away. So where are we now?
Minimum.
Okay, so
The amendment, all the amendment does, Judge Warren would put everybody back to the minimum, except for the 4 people
that she's
already submitted a letter to and requested that's already passed. Those people, based on the circumstances, would get the pay that she's requested, but all the other positions would only be budgeted and therefore funded at the minimum rate.
Okay.
So there would not be any extra funding.
So in theory, when you and I spoke about this, that the quorum court was being asked to fund the maximum instead of the minimum.
Budget the maximum.
Budget the maximum.
Correct.
And you may not hire somebody at the higher rate, so at the end of the year, you're going to have extra that'll go into the general fund.
Or every quarter, correct.
Okay. And so from the perspective of Division 3, this is not the plan yet, and we're going through personnel, finance, and then if we are able to say this person has a lot of experience, we're going to go on to the quorum court if you pass those 2 hurdles. So like Chair Deacon said, we have these provisions in place. You're still following those.
Correct. This is doing what everybody has always historically done. We can talk about at a later time as we approach budget for 2023 on looking at the idea of budgeting to the midpoint for everybody in the county. That doesn't change anybody's pay. It just changes how we do the budgeting, not the funding.
Okay. Because we have 4 open vacant positions in Division 3. Judge Warren has 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so if she gets blanket, you fund the midpoint, and we're still doing it the old-fashioned way, we're never going to be able to hire anyone. So that wouldn't be the end result of this.
That's correct.
You would still have to go through the steps to get more than the minimum, just like you did last year when we funded our positions. Is that right? I just want to make sure. Is that right?
Yes,
Justice?
that's right.
I hope. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Zimmerman. I believe JP Johnson said he's cold. Is there any other public comments? All right. What item is this? 14. Item number 14, we have a motion to pass as amended by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Duncan. Passes full quorum court with the due pass recommendation. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That'll move to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation as amended. Item number 15, an ordinance anticipating $23,229,635.50 in the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, and appropriating $10 million from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to the ARPA Revenue Replacement Fund for 2022. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Treasurer Hill or Chief of Staff Lester, would one of you guys like to comment on this, Chief of Staff?
Sure, and I think, and I've worked with Treasurer Hill on this. So when the final rule came out from the Department of Treasury on the guidelines, they changed up their funding for government. In the interim final rule, there was a formula by which you could determine how much revenue lost your county or city saw, and it's a very complicated formula, and there were a lot of factors that went into it. It was probably one of the most questioned of the rules, the interim final rules that came out. So when they issued the final rule, they kept that formula in place, but they also added a one-time, what they called a standard deduction. It wasn't a deduction, a standard allocation or something like that. Standard allowance that a county could elect to take instead of doing the formula. And so a lot of that was that smaller counties didn't have the resources and time to go through the whole formula thing. And so they had some people that had been requested. So it gave counties two options. One, you can take money from the ARPA funds, and you can go through the long process or the long formula and determine what it is that you lost in revenue and take that back in to your county general or into a fund, outside of what you have left. Or you could elect to take the standard allowance and get a straight $10 million, which is what Washington County has elected to do. Now, when it comes to this, there are far fewer restrictions on what can be done with this money, but it still has to be appropriated and it still has to be spent by 2026. Okay, so this isn't something that just goes into a rainy day fund that we can hang on to for a long time. At some point, the county's got to determine what it is. This can go for roads. This can go for infrastructure. It's pretty much, with the exception of 2 or 3 things, it's pretty unlimited on what you can do, unlike the rest of the ARPA funding. This was just basically here's a check for the county, and you've got to spend it within the parameters, time-wise, but it's yours to spend to do whatever project you need.
Let me clarify. This is establishing a new account and moving those funds to that account. We're not appropriating out of that account yet. This is essentially a housekeeping item at this point. We will debate and appropriate the money out of this account at a future time. Chief of Staff Lester?
That's correct. The legislative audit sent out to all the treasurers saying if you do this, you need to create this 1006, and they send out, when it comes to our budgeting, they tell us the numbers, they tell us the name for the most part, and so that's what we're doing. We're creating this 1006 fund and putting this money into there so that we can track this money as we spend it, as the county spends it or not, and then returns back to the federal government if it's not spent, but it has to stay in this account. It can't go into it won't go into like county general at any point.
Thank you. So we expect and welcome robust discussion on how to spend it in the future. Tonight is creating an account to put it in. Any other questions? J.P. Wilson.
I move for approval of this and passing it on to the full quorum court.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson. Second by J.P. Duncan. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? Please state your name, where you're from.
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I see that it's for revenue loss. It's my understanding the county has had surpluses the last couple of years. The revenue's actually increased over the last couple of years, so I'm not sure why we take the steps to make this standard deduction now. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Public comments. All right. Item 15.1, we have a motion to pass the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That'll move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 16, an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $11,900 in the law enforcement grant fund and appropriating $11,900 from the law enforcement grant fund to the ADR grant budget for 2022. This is a grant that Washington County receives. This is us accepting that grant and allocating that grant to the accounts. J.P. Duncan.
I move item number 16.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Item to pass 16.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Johnson. Any further discussion? Any public comments? We have a motion to pass item 16 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Johnson. All those in favor? Those opposed? Item 16.1 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 17. An ordinance establishing two funds for the collection of fire dues received by the treasurer. Treasurer Hill, will you please speak to this? Answer any questions we might have?
Many of the fire departments, volunteer fire departments, rural fire departments go through the quorum court has a special election or approves a special election to get these fire dues on their tax bills. And that's what this Boston Mountain and Sunset both had the elections. They were both approved. And so this is just getting them on the books for the collector to collect the dues. And then she will give them to me, and then I will send them to the fire departments.
Any questions? Oh, sorry.
No, just setting up the fund numbers.
Yep. Any questions for Treasurer Hill? Any motions? Motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, second by J.P. Duncan. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? I have a motion to pass item 17.1 to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 17.1 will move to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation. We have new item number 18 that was added to the agenda. It's item 22-0-027. It's an ordinance creating the ARPA administrator position in the American Rescue Plan budget for 2022. This was added to the agenda in personnel last night and passed unanimously to us. Any discussion or questions or motions? J.P. Duncan.
I was in at personnel. I'd just be curious to hear explanation and what the scope of the role would be.
Chief of Staff Lester?
So this is a position that we are asking for that is only, is a limited time position. It's funded through the ARPA funds. With these ARPA funds, there is a lot of reporting that goes on. We've had a lot of discussions. I've had discussions with Treasurer Hill about this. It's more than one person. It's more than our grant department can do without additional help. So what we're asking is to fund an ARPA administrator position that will keep up with the budget, with the numbers, not the budgeting, the numbers and the data needed to provide to the Department of Treasury, which we have to do monthly, quarterly, I think quarterly that we have to do. And so this is a person that will help oversee the retention and collection of that data so that we can then do the reporting on that. So that's what it is. And it's only for once we're out of ARPA money, this position's gone. 2026, this position's gone. It's limited in its scope and duration to these ARPA funds.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion. J.P. Wilson?
I move approval of this item going to the full quorum court.
Motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson. Second by J.P. Ussery. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? Item number 18 has a motion to pass the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Ussery. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That will move to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation. I would like to make a motion that we put items 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 on the consent agenda of the full quorum court. For simplicity, that is every ordinance we have taken action on tonight with the exception of item number 9, which we tabled. I will accept any friendly amendments for anyone who would not like to include any ordinance tonight.
Second.
We have a motion to put items 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and new item 18 on the consent agenda by J.P. Deacons, a second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. All right. Item number 19, public comments. We have a 12-minute public comment period limited to 3 minutes per person.
Hello again, Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I turned down a seat at this game, or at the game, to be here. My passion for clear communication and proper governance so overwhelming. I won't be attending the full quorum court meeting next week, so I'm presenting this here and now. To certain members of this body and the administration, I want to extend a sincere thank you for your recognition of my above and beyond advocacy for the students I serve. I am humbled that the work didn't go unnoticed. One of the lessons I shared with you last month is the difference between men and little boys. Allow me to elaborate. Men, or adults in general, work to make the world a better place, whether it's in the community, in their jobs, or in their homes. They consider the effects of their actions they take and make every effort to, at worst, do no harm. Little boys, or children in general, are cowardly and selfish, and some boys are prideful, and will do whatever it takes to get what they want without any thought for who or what may be negatively affected. Biological age is not the sole determinant between the two. I've known teenagers who provide for their families and older people who never learn how to love through their actions, anyone besides themselves. If you go to any school at just about any time of year, you'll see projects and works of art scattered throughout the halls in a public display of student achievement. What I presented to you was the same thing minus any identifying factors. What you may not realize is that this story could have been written by any of hundreds of students I've interacted with over my career. The suffering so prevalent in our society. In fact, many similar stories have been submitted over the years. I have briefly mentioned the experiences of some of my students with this body before, but it always seems to fall on deaf ears. This one stood out because it was particularly well written and very evocative of that struggle. Michael Tubbs, a recent American mayor, said that those closest to the pain should be closest to the power. I intended to lift up that voice and the voices of so many others in pain so that those in power, you, could hear them. Again, thank you for your feedback. It has confirmed that I'm on the right path and emboldened me to strive harder to advocate for those around me. On another note, passing controversial resolutions rather than doing the work of the people is counterproductive and embarrassing. Also, as many continued expenses as we have passed on tonight without blinking, we could have easily kept the CSU open this whole time. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Public comments. This meeting's adjourned.